Okay, so in this lecture, we're going to begin to talk about the first of three standard electrodes. And standard electrodes are also known as reference electrodes. We talked about the purpose of these briefly in our introductory section for potentiometry. So all of the reduction potential values that you're given in a table or in the textbook are relative to some reference. So one of those common reference electrodes is the standard hydrogen electrode. And standard hydrogen reduction refers to the following half reaction, where protons accept an electron each to make hydrogen gas. And to balance the equation, we must have two aqueous protons, each accepting one electron to give the reduced form of hydrogen. So of course, the oxidation state of a proton is +1, and then after reduction, hydrogen in the elemental form is now 0. So